you?
I am a member of Anonymous.
You're a man that walks up to my family with a mask on his face. I'm going to take issue with that, okay?
Hi, welcome to the 13 O'Clock Podcast. We have a really good show today about the batshit crazy world of Scientology. And we also have a really good guest on who's going to be on a little bit later, and I'll say something about that in a few minutes. But the first thing I want to say is that I first got interested in Scientology back, not in a like I'm in Scientology because fuck that, but in a, it was back in 2002. And I was living in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area. And I was working at this little print shop, and it was kind of a shitty job, and it didn't pay that much. So I was looking for something better, and I applied for this job at a place called the Agent Media Corporation. And so I interviewed there, and it seemed fine and everything like that. So they called me about a month after I started working, and it was better money, and, you know, but it was closer to home and everything like that. So I said, okay. Now, when I first went to work there, they told me that it was owned by Scientologists and that I had to sign this like legal disclaimer to say that, you know, we're not allowed to proselytize to you and legally and blah, 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 but we think L. Ron Hubbard's business practices are the best business practices ever in the universe. So that's what we're going to use. So it's like, we swear we're not trying to convert anyone to religion, which, whatever, that's bullshit. But anyway, so I was like, fine, whatever, I needed a job.
Yeah.
So I'm working there, and the first thing that kind of clued me into the weirdness was that the first half hour of every workday, you had to go down in the little classroom, and you had to take courses. And these were Scientology courses. They were like the early ones that they don't charge you $30,000 for or nothing. They're like the communications course, and I don't know what the other ones were. But they were all like business related ones and, you know, shit like that. And it was all bullshitty, but I was like, whatever, you know.
So you didn't have to make little clay statues or anything?
Well, see, I didn't do that, but that was the first thing that kind of, because I took these stupid classes. You had to, you know, it's like you had to write essays. It was so stupid. And it just seemed like such a waste of time, but like whatever. And
now
like,
this is the place. They don't know who Lisa McPherson is, but
well, I was gonna get to that actually.
Okay.
Now, see, I didn't really realize how weird it was. Like, not everybody that worked there was a Scientologist,
right?
But the owners were,
just
and
the
like,
muckety mucks were,
and like a lot of the higher ups were. And another weird thing too was that a lot of the managers were like kids. They were like 15, 16-year-olds.
Right.
And they had been raised in Scientology. Like, I didn't even know that existed. Like, before I started working there, I didn't know that Clearwater was like a big Scientology hub. I didn't know that there were like second and third generation ones that like went to Scientology school and like they put them to work like as kids, and they'd never been in normal school or anything. So this was like freaking me out. And like you said, one day I was in the classroom or whatever, and I saw this guy, and he was making like, he was like one of the higher up like sales managers or something like that, and he's like making these little clay figures like at his little table and like kind of making them talk to each other, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So I get back up to my office because I was working as a graphic designer, and I asked one of the other women that worked there. She wasn't one of them, and I was like, what the hell is that all about? She said, oh, it's some Scientology thing they do. They think that you need like a concrete representation of whatever your problem is. So, you know, you have to build these little clay figures. Yeah, little puppets, and like have them like discuss little, you know, problems.
I think they call it postulating. Are they postulating?
I'm not sure if that's what they call it. It's one of their stupid words. I don't know.
Right, yeah. They make up words for things.
But here's the thing. It's like, I worked there. I was like, it was a long time ago, but I worked there for about 8 months, and finally I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. It was just, it was too much crazy in one area. And the whole downtown Clearwater, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of downtown Clearwater is owned by Scientology.
It's
a lot
Mecca.
of the buildings.
It's Mecca.
Yeah, it's kind of their main hub.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even like go to the fucking grocery store without looking at everybody going, are they a pod person? Are they a pod person? I was like wigging me out, and I was like, I gotta get out of this town.
Tell them who worked there.
Yeah, and so after I left, like I got kind of interested and I started researching, and it turns out that Lisa McPherson used to work there.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know who Lisa McPherson is, and I don't remember what year this happened, it was like late 90s, I think, maybe. Mid to late 90s. But she was in Scientology, and she, like, wigged out. She had some kind of psychotic
She went
break.
crazy. Yep.
They found her, like, the cops found her, like, running down the street naked or something like that.
Yeah.
All her money was gone, whatever.
Right.
And they put her in the hospital. I think they Baker acted her or whatever. And then later, the Scientologists came and got her.
Yeah.
And they locked her in a room at the Fort Harrison Hotel in Clearwater.
Yeah.
And evidently, I don't know if they starved her to death.
No, I think they forgot to give her water.
Or they
died.
Yes, so she died.
Yeah. It was like during something kind of like an exorcisms where they're exorcising alien spirits from
Right, because they thought there was something the matter with
That's
her.
not what it's called. I think it's called the introspection rundown. It's when
something
somebody goes
that sounds
crazy,
about right.
they put them in solitary confinement until they become sane again. But that doesn't happen.
No, she died. And they found her and she had like bug bites all over her body. I mean, she looked horrible.
For more information, you want to check out the Lisa McPherson Scientology.
Yeah, so it's like, so it turned out that there was like a wrongful death lawsuit and like a bunch of people that I had worked with had testified because, you know, one of the women I worked with was her roommate and shit like that.
Right.
And then I found out all this horrible shit. I mean, you know, you guys probably all know at this point. But that's kind of how I got interested.
Yeah, and how I got into it was totally unrelated.
Yeah.
I was going through the YouTube one day, and I see videos of this guy who just seems like a goddamn maniac running around attacking these well-dressed people. And he's just berating them and just saying things that I couldn't understand. And I was like, what is up with this asshole? And then the more I watch these videos, because they're instructional, as they go, they explain what's going on. And the more I watch the videos and I read the comments, I realize that what this guy's doing is actually kind of a good deed. That this guy's a crusader. And he's called the Angry Gay Pope. And that's who our guest is today, the Angry Gay Pope. So, really encourage you to, after the show, go subscribe to Angry Gay Pope and watch his videos and study them. They are absolutely hilarious. And they're educational. They're very informative about a very dangerous cult.
Yeah.
Called
and
Scientology.
He's been fucking with them since 2008.
Yeah.
And he's, like you said, he's really doing the world a service.
Yeah, and if you don't understand what you're seeing and you don't understand Scientology, you can really misinterpret what's happening. This guy is a master at what he does, and it's basically psychological warfare against the Church of Scientology.
Which needs to happen, really.
He goes out there and he messes with them, gets it on video, makes a YouTube channel, and through this YouTube channel, people learn about Scientology and the problems with the Church of Scientology.
Right.
It's not so much the religion, it's more of just the church and its abuses. You know?
Which they are somehow allowed to get away with, which I don't really understand.
So we're not attacking freedom of religion, we're just attacking an abusive church.
And it's not a religion, honestly.
No,
it's just a scam.
It's a scam.
All it is. They just want your money and to beat the shit out of you. And maybe have you killed. Allegedly. Yeah. So,
and their secret police will know about us as soon as this video posts.
Probably. Oh my God, we're gonna have people outside our house now.
Nah, not a scared.
I don't think they do that.
We got nothing they want.
I don't think they do that anymore.
Nah. There's so many people that know about it. But
if something happens to us, you guys, you'll know, okay?
It was OSA. Office of Special Affairs.
Right, yeah, that's who did it. So anyways, what we're going to do, so we just wanted to make this little short introduction, and then I'm going to pop in our little commercial from our sponsor, and then after the break, we are going to come back with the Angry Gay Pope.
And this is the definitive Angry Gay Pope show. This is the definitive interview of this guy.
He hardly ever gives interviews.
Yeah. Okay. So this is almost an
exclusive.
So
we're very excited.
Yes, you guys will love it. It's a great show.
So after the break, tune in. I would like to take a second and thank Subculture Corsets and Clothing for sponsoring Project iRadio and my show. While listening to my podcast, please take a second and visit their website at www.subculturecorsets.com. They carry a wide selection of corsets, rockabilly, gothic, steampunk, and pinup clothing, shoes, and accessories. Again, their website is subculturecorsets.com, or if you're in the Jacksonville, Florida area, stop by their store in the Avenues Mall. And if you like to save money, use the discount code 13o'clock when checking out and save 10% off your entire order. By the way, if you're a curvy girl, Subculture did not forget about you. They carry size 4 to 4X, and guys, they have men's clothing and shoes as well. So go shop at subculturecorsets.com now and use the discount code 13o'clock for a 10% discount.
AGP, man, it's great to have you on the show. I've been watching all of your videos for years. I've seen everything you've done on Scientology, and I tell you, man, you are a legend.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I get some, I've been doing this since 2008, and I'll get messages on YouTube with people telling me that they binge watch my videos, and I'm like, you're binge watching my videos? That's a lot of screaming. And they tell me that they watch them when they're feeling down, and it makes them feel better, even though they're about things like coerced abortions and stuff.
I tell you, man, I do the same thing.
I think the reason they like watching it is they like seeing we all feel so oppressed right now that huge corporations have all the power, and people with money like Scientology have all the power. And what can little one person do? When they see one person standing up to these people and making complete fools out of them and getting them in trouble with the great leader, I guess it makes them feel better about human nature, maybe.
I swear to God, AGP, I'm an ex-military guy. And I served on the DMZ in Korea. And watching you do what you do is like watching a one-man commando unit. It's just,
really?
It's just one long psychological operation. And it looks like one man conducting psychological warfare against a huge army. It's fantastic, man. I love it.
You know, I've had, I had a friend that I met online, and he came over. We went out to eat, and he was military too, and he said very similar things.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, and they followed him on the way over here because he has a security clearance still. He was in, he can find out government secrets because he still has a security clearance, even though he's not in the military anymore. And so they did a loud investigation following him here, and I told him, don't call me on the cell phone because I think they're identifying people who do that way.
Right.
So he only called me on the day he was coming over, and they were following him very obviously anyway. And he's military; he knows when he's being followed. So that's when I knew they're reading all my emails as well.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Wow. Okay. Jenny worked for a Scientology front company for 8 months.
Now, you folks are in Florida, and it was near Clearwater, right?
I lived in Clearwater in 2002, and they weren't like a Scientology company, but it was a company that was owned by Scientologists.
They made her take courses and fill out and do stats, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they force you, there have been multiple lawsuits where like a chiropractor will force his employees to take Scientology courses, and that's against the law. You're forcing someone to be in your religion for no reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Your audio's coming in real good, AGP. Everything's going fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, let's start from the beginning, AGP. What does AGP stand for, and where did you get this name?
Angry Gay Pope. Well, I showed up at protests wearing a Pope hat, and I was angry, and I said, "I'm gay. I hate them."
and Scientology.
So let's finish. So the first protest was in like February of 2008, and I read about it in the LA Times and stuff, and I said, I'd love to go to that, but I'm not going to be the only one there, just so I can get shot. And so when I saw pictures that a lot of people showed up, I went to the second one, and there were like 400 people there just in LA, and there were like about 7,500 elsewhere all over the world that day. And they gave us instructions on what to wear. Wear baggy clothes so they can't see whether you're fat or thin or whatever. Wear something that covers all your hair so they can't see that. Wear a mask. And so I went to the party store and I looked for masks and things to hide my hair. And I saw an afro and like, no, that's not going to work. And then I saw a pirate hat, and I said, no, I don't want to be a pirate. That's like software piracy. And then Anonymous spent months doing pirate-themed protests. So there was the Pope hat, and I said, that fits because I was raised in I was born in a Catholic orphanage, was raised Catholic, and Guy Fawkes, the hero of Anonymous, is a Catholic symbol. And I have a papal personality with a papal magnet draws people in or repels them. So I show up and was like overstimulated in public. It was such a rush to find out that these scary people were really just complete losers with tons of money and not much else. So everyone called me the Angry Gay Pope, and the name stuck. And if you Google Angry Gay, you go to a computer you've never used, like in the Mac store, and Google Angry Gay, and it will fill in Pope for you. So I guess I'm the angriest, gayest person in the English-speaking YouTube search world.
I believe it.
Now, AGP, I've heard Scientology handlers in your videos call you AGP. And I'm talking about Patty. She called you AGP. Yeah. So Scientology knows you as AGP?
They knew me as the Angry Gay Pope for 3 months before they could figure out who I was. So okay. When I go there, I'll hear the radios crackle, and they'll say, "Pope's here."
Okay. Let me ask you something, AGP. We have to assume that some of the listeners...
They try not to do that now because they know I hate it when they use my real name. So they all try to use my real name.
Use your real name now. Now, AGP, I'm gonna assume that. Let's assume that some of our listeners don't know anything about Scientology. Can you explain to us what is Scientology? How did it start? What do they believe in?
If you ask Scientologists that, they'll just tell you, "Go buy this book, give us money, and learn about it," which is a total deliberate fakery. Scientology was founded by L. Ron Hubbard in 1950 when he wrote a book called Dianetics, and he was a science fiction author that was broke doing that, so he decided to start a religion, kind of like what George Lucas did with the movie Star Wars and the Force, but he did it by accident.
Right.
Don't you laugh at Star Wars?
I love Star Wars.
We love Star Wars.
So he came up with this multi-level marketing scheme that was he wrote various books and self-help things, and after he ran out of ideas of either he had his own ideas for what makes a successful life, and then he stole ideas from psychiatrists and others, and then when he ran out of all that stuff, he just started making things up from his science fiction past. So the longer you're in it, the more they spy on you, and the more you suddenly realize that there's no there, and it was all just a big scam to begin with, and that the most useful courses were in the beginning. So they own huge amounts of property here in L.A. and other places around the world, but they own over 400 million here in L.A. alone. And they're empty churches because everyone has figured out that they're a scam, but it's just buildings now and a small number of very screwed up people. And no one wants to talk about them because they're bullies. They bullied the government to make them they bullied the IRS in the Clinton administration to make them a religion. And so none of the media want to talk about them because they're afraid of them. Whereas I just went right in and did my thing anyway, like Luke Skywalker swooshing down some little trench,
Now, what was Operation Snow White?
Operation Snow White was one of the biggest spy operations against the United States government and the Canadian government, other governments. And Scientology conducted it, snuck into government offices, stole documents about them, messed with files. They were all caught, and some of them went to jail, but not for a very long time. And the great leader just barely escaped, but his wife went to prison for a while. And now they cover it up and don't want to talk about it, but it's all over Wikipedia and it's very famous. So that was the sort of thing the founder did. And the founder, L. Ron Hubbard, was this red-haired loudmouth who couldn't wait to buy up a bunch of properties and put his name on top of them, which is just like Donald Trump. They both wrote self-help books. They both have fake schools. They both love giant buildings with their name on it.
Okay.
It's scary.
Now, Scientologists have their own language, don't they? I hear them say things like the bridge, OT powers. I hear them talk about the fourth dynamic engrams. Do you understand this language?
I didn't at first. I said, what's the fourth dynamic? What's an engram and why is it dynamic? And I had no idea what they were talking about. But there's a couple ideas in Scientology that are interesting. and they involve that kooky language. But if you see one of my videos, just Google "stupid things Scientologists say," short version.
Yeah.
You'll hear all that stuff that they talk to with each other, and they use that jargon to try and pull you into their world. Mm-hmm. So any religion can talk about love, and any religion can talk about, your soul. They're not going to sound special doing that. They want to sound scientific. So they made up the word affinity instead of love, and thetan instead of soul. So it sounds like they're talking about something so complicated and interesting when really it's just the same old bullshit from every religion. And then they pile on all sorts of other new words, or they take old words like the word handle and change the meaning so much half the time you don't know what they're talking about. And, sometimes I would hear Scientology people talking that are exes, and like they're talking in that voice to each other, and I established a comm cycle with and now he's a top terminal, and I was like, oh, it's like the black speech of Mordor. Don't say that.
Now, what is?
Then I realized, I have a degree in English. I took psycholinguistic courses in college, and I realized that this is a dying language, like Native American language. Like some of the, there are plenty of Navajos. The Navajo language is fine, but other Native American tribes, are losing it. Mm-hmm. So I said to myself, I won't tell them to stop talking. I'll just listen to it. And when you listen to it, you can pick up enough of it to parrot it badly enough that it just drives Scientologists crazy. You just make them eat their own dog food and tell them they're idiots in their own language. And they're just not used to hearing that.
Now, what is auditing?
Auditing is their talk therapy where you sit in front of a device called an e-meter, and they basically do talk therapy with you that finds out all of your overts and withholds, your sins and the things that you didn't do and you should have, and they write all that down, and then they blackmail you with it later when you try to leave. So Tom Cruise and John Travolta will never leave because they have all kinds of long discussions of their innermost secrets.
Right.
And they have sound and video of John Travolta having sex with a guy in a hotel room at the Celebrity Center Hotel, the major hotel that the Scientologists own here in town. Yeah. He'll never leave. And so every time Tom Cruise comes out with a movie, people run a story like, oh, is Tom Cruise leaving Scientology? Just to have something to talk about. But he'd never leave it. And John Travolta's son died of untreated mental illness. He was autistic, and he died from having seizures all the time. And finally, he fell and hit his head in a bathtub and died right away. So he's never going to leave. Even, his own children the corpses are piling up, and he doesn't stop him at all. These are the kind of people that have children as a publicity stunt.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for some people like whistleblower Karen Della Carriere and others, they've had hate videos and other stuff made about them based on their talk therapy confessionals. In fact, Karen was held captive in Riverside, California, in this basically Scientology equivalent of a rundown haunted house. And they strapped her to a chair, and they would read back her own confessionals to her and mock her for things like having a boob job or just having human insecurities.
Wow.
I just can't imagine what that was like. She was going through physical torture and emotional torture at the same time.
So this is a dangerous group.
It's a hate group like ISIS or the Westboro Baptist Church, the God hates fags people.
Yeah.
ISIS isn't Islam, and Westboro Baptist Church isn't Baptist. And Scientology isn't science, and it's barely even ology. I mean, it's a hate group that hates itself as much as it hates the outside world.
So they're more of a danger.
A lot of the appeal, I think, comes from people who've had an abusive childhood.
Okay.
And like Tom Cruise had a terrible childhood, and his father was a jerk. So now maybe he's replaced his jerk father with a jerk cult leader, and he expects to be in a shitty situation, and he expects to be, abused or neglected. And if that doesn't happen, it seems strange to them. And that's exactly the kind of thing that people come to Hollywood for, where they didn't get enough love and attention when they were little, and now they want to come to Hollywood and be movie stars and have the anonymous crowd give them the love and attention that they didn't get as children, but they can't be hurt by the anonymous crowd. The crowd will just love them.
Now,
and so there's no coincidence that the porno industry and Scientology are practically headquartered here because they both exploit people like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the cult leader. His name is David Miscavige.
Yes.
Now,
he's like my evil twin brother. He's the angry gay pope of Scientology, or the angry bisexual pope.
Now, as a gay man, do you find David Miscavige to be attractive?
Yes.
Okay.
Get him, Tommy Davis, and Tom Cruise and I in a room, and I'll get down on my knees so they can feel taller. I swear to God. You know, I've slept with some of the same prostitutes Tom Cruise has. The difference is I didn't have to pay for it. So they've told me some stories. We can get into that. But David Miscavige he was super into fitness and karate and shit like that. So when he wails on someone, he knows what he's doing, even though he's a tiny little guy. But then that kind of gives him that Napoleon thing that Napoleon was rumored to be, because he was short. That's why he's doing everything well. Apparently Napoleon wasn't really that short. That was just what his enemies said. Yeah. But Napoleon has a reputation for a Napoleonic complex where you're a short little guy, so you want to be a huge bodybuilder and scream at people or something like that.
How tall is David Miscavige?
I think he's like, Tom Cruise is taller than he is. I mean, they're both very short. It's like 5'5" or something like that. And he used to be really handsome, but he's looked gaunt the past years or two. I think the stress is really getting to him.
Okay.
He also likes to drink brown liquor, I'm told, and that's like the hardest liquor for you.
Now, Miscavige and Tom Cruise are supposed to be good buddies. Do you think that's true?
He went on Tom Cruise's honeymoon with Katie Holmes and Tom. I mean, what the
They
fuck?
buy motorcycles for each other, don't they?
They do, and I'm not sure how the relationship is, and I'm sure it changes over time because he would try to leave and they'd yank him back in.
Right.
And then he didn't show up at the, neither he, Tom Cruise, John Travolta, and Kirstie Alley did not show up for the massive opening of the Scientology Media Productions Hollywood movie studio. And that's a huge thing because it tells you what they're thinking finally. She lives just like a mile or two away from the place. Why didn't Kirstie show up?
Maybe her ass got too big.
I was just thinking that. I was going to make a joke about how wide the gate was.
Yeah.
One time she was at the Celebrity Center. We were protesting outside.
I saw the video. I know what you're talking about. It was so hilarious.
Sewage back up in like 2009.
Yeah.
Because their infrastructure, they only invest in their building for what looks good. If the plumbing is shit, they don't care because nobody can see it. So they're at the Celebrity Center and Kirstie Alley's there, and we're all protesting outside. And then there's a sewage backup, and the government put out these signs like "Don't drive here," and somebody photoshopped warning: sewage leak due to Kirstie Alley excrement.
Oh man!
She walked by. She walked.
Blocks the toilets and the entire system. Kirstie
Alley walked in front of you in one of your videos, and you said, "Kirstie, you pulled that fat ass in yourself."
Yeah.
That was funny. What is pulling something in? What does that mean to Scientology?
That means that it's your own fault. So everything in Scientology, if you do something good in Scientology, it's because the group did it for you. Okay. If you do something bad in Scientology, it's because of your fault. Part of the re-abusing people with an abusive childhood. Okay. So pulling it in means you asked for it. You did it yourself. It's your own fault. Okay. So when David Miscavige has all these problems, he basically pulled it in himself.
I got you.
Fat ass, she pulled it in herself from pulling all those toys in her mouth.
Now, your videos are fascinating, and one of the things that you do in one of your videos is that you go to one of Scientology's secret bases. It's called Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about these places?
Go there. I'm one of the few people who go there. It's where some famous Scientologists are thought to be held possibly against their will, or maybe they're just so brainwashed they just stay up there. And it's in San Bernardino, California, which is a big rural area. The county is like the size of a state, and they have no money, and the cops are bankrupt, the criminal justice system's bankrupt, and the Scientologists do whatever they want in this gorgeous place that looks like Swiss chalets. And it was originally built by rich people in L.A., so that it was one of the first places rich people in L.A., like in the 20s, could come out to someplace rural and get away from the city.
It's like the Overlook Hotel.
Pardon me?
It's like the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah, except it's not one huge building. It's many small ones.
Okay.
And they put in a secret vault there. That's where L. Ron Hubbard's words are stored on metal plates to survive World War III. They came up with this technology that they could stamp his books onto metal, just like your credit card has bumps of words.
Yeah.
And that way the ink won't fade because it's physically bumped. And then they put these metal plates into inert gas, like helium or something like that. And then they locked it in this extraterrestrial Tupperware and put it down there because they were terrified of World War III, because Scientology began in the 1950s when everyone was petrified that the Soviets were going to nuke us. So they have a book called All About Radiation. I mean, like, what religion writes a book called All About Radiation? What is next? Like the Pope explains protons or something? That stuff is all hidden up there in just one of their secret vaults. And there's a huge fence around it. It's like a James Bond villain facility with huge transmitting towers and a giant fence with spikes all over it. And my friend Anon Orange and I, we went up there, and no one had ever done that before. And just by walking around and taking photographs, it caused a freak out at one of their most secret places. And I'm told by ex-Scientologists that the Scientologists in charge of Twin Peaks ended up being tortured and had horrible things done to them and hit rock bottom or whatever because they allowed my friend and I to go take those pictures.
Wow.
And the pictures you've seen that I take of their fences and their horrible spikes, they're like concentration camps. Well, they are concentration camps.
Wow.
And I'm the only one who's been ballsy enough to take the pictures because I risk arrest to do it. So you'll see those pictures on Wikipedia, in foreign newscasts, in documentaries. I had a call from someone the other day about looking to get the rights for some of them for something they're doing.
Now, there's supposed to be at least one more way out in the desert, and they've had just a couple.
There's at least 3 of these secret places. One of them is in Trementina, New Mexico. That's where they gouged a giant symbol of their religion into the ground so that you could see it from a UFO, because they're concerned that humanity will be destroyed, and they believe in reincarnation, and you have to have someone to give birth so that you can be reincarnated. If everyone on Earth dies, you can't be reincarnated back on Earth because the nuclear war has killed everyone. So they said, that means we'll have to be reincarnated on another planet, and then you're going to have to feel the urge for Scientology, and then you're going to have to get in a spaceship, possibly of your own design, fly thousands of light years to the United States, fly over, see that symbol, land, open the vault's massive bomb-proof doors, get inside, learn English, and then you'll be able to experience L. Ron Hubbard again.
Yeah.
So that was their logic for gouging this giant symbol into the ground at just one of their secret vaults. And there's hardly anyone there, and it's kind of an emergency place for the Scientologists to go, where the greatest Scientologists in the world would be airlifted to this place in case of nuclear war. They also own a gold mine in Northern California, which is a great place to stash bodies and documents you don't want anyone to find. They own L. Ron Hubbard's place where he died in Creston, California. And these are all kind of secret places. I haven't been to many of them, but after I go, the church puts up huge barriers and plants nasty, wicked, thorny plants and giant bushes. So because people like 60 Minutes of the New York Times didn't do what I did in 2010, they can't do it now. And journalists tell me, I looked at the place on Google Earth or whatever, and you can't see anything. And I'm like, yeah, too bad. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, Mark Headley said that he knew where he was going to the one out in the desert. He could barely find it.
Which one is Trementina. Yeah, that one is harder to get to because it's way, way off in the back, and you would have to trespass and go down their driveway and all that kind of stuff. And who knows what kind of loony people you're going to get the other end. Probably illegal Mexicans in plaid shirts with tattoos, and then they point a gun at you or something. So few people have been to that. You have to fly over it. But Twin Peaks is right next to the road, and you can go on what's called the easement, which is a public way right next to their fence, even though it's their property. And they just can't stand that. They just cannot stand it.
And it's funny, they get punished just because of something somebody else does.
Yes. Yeah. So, the way it was explained to me is, they they give them perks every once in a while. They pat them on the back once in a while, but mostly they're punishing them for wrongdoing. And so when I come there, people think I'm just making some video to show myself off or something. It's like, no, I'm there trying to get Scientologists in trouble so they will hit rock bottom and think about leaving. I am not trying to convert them by talking on the street, because that doesn't work. When was the last time you had a life-changing epiphany because some guy in a Pope hat and a spooky mask talked to you? You didn't. So the great leader, David Miscavige, watches all of my videos, and then they're pointed out to him, and then he punishes those people who get in trouble. And the people at Twin Peaks were placed in the gulag, the work slave gulag, because of that, which is exactly what I want to have happen. And the way it works is, let's say I go to a Scientology location and you're a Scientologist working there. You leave your building to cross the street to get something and you run into me. And even though your boss told you to go across the street and get something, you ran into me. So it's not the boss's fault for telling you to leave the building. It's your fault for seeing me.
Whoa.
You should have used your Scientology operating Thetan powers to go back in time to before you left the building and then just not leave it.
Yeah, they believe that they can transcend space and time once they get to a certain level, right?
So that's why they think Tom Cruise is such a successful actor. They believe, I think this is correct, they believe that if Tom Cruise is in a bad movie, he usually just goes back in time to before he made it and then doesn't make it.
Wow. Whoa.
So when he got caught with his pants down in Iceland, and Katie Holmes divorced him, that was kind of looked at in Scientology circles as, how could that happen? He's an operating Thetan, and he should have not had that happen, because you can go back in time with these powers.
Wow. They have Jedi powers.
You can go back in time to your previous lifetimes. So John Travolta's son, they believe that autism was a punishment for him. What can a newborn baby do that would be bad? Well, You're not a newborn baby. Maybe Jet Travolta killed a lot of people during the Crusades. Or maybe when he was a caveman, as a man or woman cave person, he did something else horrible. And the minute you're born, the evil souls of dead space aliens fly into your body again. Yeah. And all the sins from all your previous lifetimes pile up. And that's why he had autism. Wow. Now that's just but it goes with constantly trying to belittle people and put them down. Another example is when a woman has a baby in Scientology, you're supposed to have a silent birth, which means don't make any noise.
Good luck with that.
No, do that. And so when that happens, it's like you're at fault for not being incredibly perfect. And another example would be you're taught in Scientology in their courses that you pay a ton of money for. The way it was explained to me by an ex-Sci, let's say you hit your leg on a table. I would say, and it happens more than once. So, I got to stop hitting my leg on this table. I know I will practice standing up and sitting down or walking around the table without getting hit. That's what you or I would do, right? Mm-hmm. What Scientologists are told to do is hit your leg on that table 10 times until you know not to do it anymore.
Wow.
So that's that kind of torture for these people to make them feel bad about themselves. Because, aren't you just training them to hit their leg every time?
Yeah. Okay, let's back up. I know that this is a religion based upon basically alien demonic possession. And
you don't know that until you've spent, 10 years and $400,000 to get to the level where you learn that. That's where you get to the level where L. Ron Hubbard, the founder, ran out of ideas. And so he just threw science fiction crap into the mix.
Yeah.
And that is not something that Scientologists would know. Like, when I was born in the Catholic Church, as soon as I was old enough to understand it, I learned that Jesus' mother is a virgin and stuff like that, which doesn't make sense. Right. But you told it right away. And I'm told in Mormonism, the Mormons say, this is what we believe, and you're either going to completely believe it or you're not going to believe it at all. It's all or nothing. But the Scientologists, because it's a scam and not a true religion, like we would look at it, they don't tell you these important things. And so when you say things like it's a space alien cult, there's plenty of Scientologists who would disagree with you quite rightly. Yeah. Because they haven't gone far enough into it to get to the space alien.
Right. And that supposedly happens when they have enough money to pay for OT3, which is like the third level. And that's when
rating Thetan level 3 out of 8.
Yeah, and they find out about Xenu, right?
Yeah, it's at level 3 that you discover that Xenu, the Galactic Emperor, dropped the 4th dynamic engram, creating the Wall of Fire incident.
Whoa!
That means he unleashed all sorts of horrible dead alien ghosts into the world millions of years ago that are plaguing mankind today and cause all the world's problems. And who's the only group that can cure these things? Scientology. It's like in the 1950s, the Listerine people invented this disease called halitosis, which is bad breath. And then they said Listerine cures it. We cure disease. Exact same thing. Exactly.
So these alien souls, these alien ghosts attach to you. They mock up on you. And
they mock up on you, and you can't see them. They're invisible. And so you're telling people, some of whom are – Scientology makes you go crazy if it's applied properly. And now you're telling people that they're covered with creepy crawlies that they can't see.
Yeah,
it's just you're asking them to go insane. Yeah. And I imagine them as little black fuzzballs that are microscopic. And you can have thousands of them. And like when they also constantly milk it. And they claim you can – get rid of them using Scientology, but the more of them that you get rid of, you just find out it's even worse. Okay, so we got rid of all your body thetans that were awake, but you have body thetans that are asleep, and we're going to have to wake them up in our next session.
Wow. Wow.
So once you reach one point where you've gotten the body thetans out of you, no, you haven't really.
Wow.
There's still more, and there's always going to be more. Until you run out of money and stop working for them for free, and then they give you the boot.
Okay, AGP, in your videos, there are figures in Scientology, and these are guys at the street level, a lot of them. They're like bicycle guards and things called handlers. And through your show, they have almost become minor celebrities.
Yeah, they become minor celebrities. Like, where's Odo? Oh, there he is.
Now, tell everybody who Odo is.
Odo is one of the guards, and he has the funny name, so I always say Odo. And he got caught having sex with one of the guys, his boss, and I never stop reminding him of that loudly.
So it's true?
Yeah, he got caught. Ryan Boswell, protester Happy Smurf, knows all the dirt, and he told me that Odo got caught having sex in the shower with Ryan Boswell, his security superior.
Whoa!
And so I always say that really loudly because they're viciously anti-gay. So to spread things like that just it demeans Odo endlessly. His mother, I can't remember her name right now, but his sister left, disconnected from him. She left Scientology, which means no one in Scientology can talk to his sister. So I remind him about it. There's various other bike guards too, half of whom look like male models because they throw their most beautiful young children into public places where the outside world can see them and be impressed by how cute they are.
Right. Now, I have this theory that Odo actually likes you.
You're right. The various guards and other characters have become minor internet celebrities on their own. So when people go and protest and see them, it's like, oh, wow, that's that guy.
Yeah.
Can I have your autograph?
I actually think Odo likes you. I think he likes you.
Odo does not like me.
He doesn't? Okay. Because I'm looking at his face, and I think he's kind of impressed with you.
You don't know what they're thinking.
Okay.
That's just a mask he wears.
I got it.
But when I come there, people get in trouble. He doesn't because he's a guard and he can do whatever he wants.
Right.
Unless it's something really awful that he does by mistake, but that doesn't happen. So
is he as shy as he seems? He seems actually shy to me.
Yeah, he's like soft-spoken and when my appearance is the most interesting that happens to them that entire week. Okay. I mean, they're staggeringly bored. Guarding, the one place, their large facility, Big Blue in Silver Lake, California. It's like east of Hollywood, part of LA. It's gigantic, and they have like 3 bicycle guards alone running around that you don't need all this security force. They have nothing to do. They're just waiting for someone to try and run away.
Now
so that they bike after them and then.
Now there's another one that you made a superstar, which is Frank Paolo.
Frank Paolo. He's a hunky guy. I think he might be the father of one of Tom Cruise's adopted children, him or his brother. They look so much like him.
Okay.
And he's a dark-skinned Scientologist, which is like, they're so rare. And I know that Tom Cruise got his kids from got his kids from the Sea Org in some sneaky adoption. I mean, Kirstie Alley adopted her children, I think, I heard, a much more legitimate way, but Tom got his through the Sea Org, which is pretty sneaky. And I'm an expert on adoption, being adopted myself. So
now,
that really pisses me off when people like him do things like that, adopting children as a publicity stunt.
Now, has anybody seen Frank Paulo recently?
I haven't been to where he is lately. I haven't seen him in like over a year. But when I did go by, I would see Alexei, the little Russian guard. He goes, "Oh, long time no see."
Okay.
I'm sure Frank is probably still there.
Okay.
But I do hear rumors sometimes that some of the guards get RPF, thrown into the gulag.
Right.
It's the bottommost pit of Scientology, where you can't speak to anyone and you're treated like garbage, and you literally clean garbage cans with your toothbrush. So some of them have been RPF'd and then they come back for more again. It is a lot like a abused girlfriend who keeps coming back to the guy again and like, "Oh no, officer, you just don't know him like I do. He's just a little boy inside." Slap.
Now, in most of your videos, when you really start giving these guards a hard time, they call out these people called handlers. Can you tell us what a handler is?
Yeah, the handlers appeared a lot in 2008 and 9 with the anonymous protests. And handlers are people that they send out to go against protesters, in my case, or they just send them to watch someone. Like Katie Holmes had her own handler, Jessica Feshbach. And at one point, Jessica had health problems or something like that, and she couldn't handle Katie Holmes anymore. So that's when Katie Holmes went into her "get me the hell out of here" mode. But before that, Katie Holmes was being watched all the time by her handlers. And those are, quote, the friendly handlers who report everything you do and all the websites you go to back to the great leader. We had different handlers. They're the handlers that come out that deal with the enemy. Anonymous, people like me. And you had handlers like Patty Baber and Tim Armour. They were, I am told, desperate to get back into Scientology.
Okay.
And they had fallen out of favor with Scientology or something like that, and they wanted back in so badly. So there's nothing you can say to them that would make them leave Scientology. And they don't care if it's a space alien cult. All their friends are in it. All their business partners are in it. Their life is in it. It really doesn't matter what the beliefs of the group are. It's their group. So eventually those people came out less and less because the cult finally figured out that we were having so much fun with the handlers that if they just didn't bring handlers out, people would get bored and leave.
Yeah. Now, one good handler that you have videos of is Patty. And
yes.
Patty is rumored to be...
She was their leader.
Now, was Patty a stripper?
She claims that she was not.
Okay.
She claims that there was a ex-Scientologist in Albuquerque, ex-Scientologist, Sheila something, who made that rumor up. Okay. If she was a stripper, it was obviously about 60 pounds ago, 40 years.
Now, there's another handler that you catch every now and then. You'll catch him on video. And he's this gray-haired old guy that just agrees with everything you said. What's his name?
Oh, yes. I forget his name, but he's in the videos like the whole River of Vomit series. I did that right before the Mitt Romney election, where I just wanted the concept of a Mormon Mitt Romney becoming president made me want to throw up. And I was there at that protest promoting an independent Scientology website just to cause them to have a civil war. So that made me want to vomit too. Yeah. So I called it the River of Vomit. And he was throughout that thing. And I just saw him recently for the first time at the Scientology media productions opening. There were 2 handlers there, but they don't send them out much anymore.
Yeah, that guy was great. And I just wanted to tell David Miscavige that he was the most effective handler that they had, because he just went out there, he was friendly, went, "Oh, really? You don't say." Oh,
he rolled with it.
And he just rolled with it. He rolled with it. So he just tried to diffuse it, which I thought that was the best way to handle it but they're always trying to do the confront. Can you tell us what the confront is?
Confront, bull baiting, bullying someone to try and make them get flustered, look stupid on camera, and then that makes it criticizes their character.
I see.
So like, why would you believe anyone this guy is battling about? Because when we Scientologists talked to him, he began screaming and yelling. There's a British journalist, John Sweeney. He's kind of like the Walter Cronkite of England, if people know who Walter Cronkite was. I'm dating myself. I'm like 51. but he got into a screaming match, and it like affected his career. And they used that screaming match and would show it at fundraisers and stuff, saying, "Look how our enemies are stupid idiots." Mm-hmm. So he fell for the bull baiting because he was being stalked and messed with, and he just cracked. But I do that to the other people. So, the first rule of trolling is you don't get upset yourself. But sometimes, like protester non-orange would start cussing at them, and I'd have to edit it out of the video. or one time I was talking to Patty, and she just pissed me off so much, and I thought, God, if only there was a Scientologist like Tori Magoo, who's an ex-Scientologist whistleblower, she would know what to say. She would know what to say to Patty. Well, guess what? Tori and Patty run into each other during the protest, and eventually, Tori Magoo just says, "Oh, fuck you, Patty." I'm like, well, I guess no one really knows what to say sometimes.
Now, I've noticed, I also follow some of the ex-Scientologists, and some of them really have their shit together. I like Chris Sheldon. I think Chris Sheldon is.
Yeah, when I did the SurvivingScientology.com series of videos with Karen de la Carriere and her husband Jay Swift, he came on there and he did a great one about their real estate scam. Mm-hmm. And now we got him doing his own one. So it's like you've got a spin-off channel from Surviving Scientology, and now it's the Chris Shelton channel. And so that's just one more hole in the dike that they have to try and plug, and they can't. And now Chris is coming out of his shell and doing videos about a movie he liked or anything like that. He's, back in the real world, becoming an individual again, because they really have to learn how to become individuals again, because if you're in this cult for 20 years, it's going to take you 20 years literally to be unbrainwashed again.
Some of them don't seem like they ever really fully recover. The ones that
No, it's helpful that you get them, once you get them out of the abusive environment. It's kind of like taking the abused girlfriend away from her boyfriend for a week and having an intervention. When she's away from the punching, she starts to see it a little differently. And that's the way it is when you get them out of there, without constantly having Scientology shoved down their throat, demanding money, telling you stink. They start to unbrainwash, and then the first thing they decide is that the great leader, David Miscavige, who's running Scientology now, is actually evil.
Right. And
then eventually they come around to the much harder thing, which is the founder of Scientology was also evil. Right. Which is just very hard for them to get over. And in her nice book, Troublemaker, actress Leah Remini, she at the end of it, she says, it's really difficult for me to deal with that the religion I had devoted so much time and money to would be at best useless and a waste of money, or at worst evil. Right. And so it takes a lot of personal courage to come out and say that, and then not just hide in the closet with your guilt. Because, you have to get up and say, I was an idiot. I mean, I can look at it now like, what was wrong with me? So when I went to see Going Clear and they had scriptwriter Paul Haggis on there, I thought, this guy's an idiot. And if he says something stupid like that, or like, hooray for L. Ron Hubbard, I just want to punch the screen. And Paul Haggis gets on and he says, it was a cult. Everyone told me it was a cult for 20 years. I didn't listen. I am an idiot, not was. He recognizes there's something wrong with him that made him so easy to fall for this, He's the kind of guy who throws himself into his work and ignores his family. Scientology was another thing he could throw himself into. So he's the kind of guy who could do a movie about a little girl who doesn't know how to read. Oh, the audience will be so touched. Well, his own daughter didn't know how to read when she was 10 or 15 years old because she'd had a Scientology education. But he didn't see that. He didn't even know she was illiterate. Wow. That's the kind of person he is. So, great movie maker, I guess. Haven't seen his stuff. I don't know.
Now, AGP, what is an ideal org?
An ideal org is the largest of the Scientology meeting houses. You could call it a church, but they don't pray there, and they don't have Sunday services really or anything like that. The ideal org is a meeting house, and it's where you go for your talk therapy. You go to get hit on for money. They have various events. There's a huge open area in the front to try and entice people in with computerized kiosks because they don't have enough workers to man the place. No one goes into them. They're completely empty now. They are just a excuse to own real estate and just get richer and richer. And they have them all over the world. There's some in L.A., they're in England, Australia, Taiwan, Italy.
There's almost some parallels with North Korea, isn't there? Building big empty buildings and glorifying the leader and mind control.
The great leader is flawless.
Right.
The great leader is wonderful. You have these fantastical buildings that are so impressive, even though there's nothing going on inside.
Right.
Or they'll buy these ideal orgs. The scam works that Scientologists in a small building that isn't really performing in an area like, say, Twin Cities, they'll be suckered into spending years getting enough money together to buy some huge building. And then once they cough up all the money, they have no money to renovate it. And then they spend decades coming up with that money as the building slowly rots. And every month it has, utility bills that need paid. And then when they finally get it all done just right, the church leader, David Miscavige, takes over the building and he owns it and you pay him rent.
Wow.
So he gets this great big building that's not being used for anything. It is part of an architectural portfolio and they get used stupidly and then they come back for more.
Wow.
So imagine you're in a group of 20 people trying to open this building, and eventually over 5 years you've donated $1 million to them each. You don't have money on your own.
Now,
you give it all to them.
Now, evidently they just bought a television studio. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, that's Scientology Media Productions here in Hollywood. It was one of the early Poverty Row studios where they did Bowery Boys and silent movies and stuff like that. It was one of the smaller studios that did the serials, the Saturday morning serials, the cheaper stuff back when movies were kind of like television and everyone went to the movies once a week.
Yeah.
And eventually it was bought by KCET Studios, the PBS broadcasters, and Carl Sagan, the famous astronomer, did a show called Cosmos there.
Mm.
And he was Mr. I hate religion and I hate cults.
Wow.
And I like science. And that was their one big product. That Cosmos was a massive success, and the book sold zillions of copies, made lots of money. Well, then KCET ran out of money about a couple years ago, and they just went to the Scientologists who were right down the street with a huge facility, and they said, "Would you like to buy us?" And the Scientologists said, "Sure," and they gave them $40 million in cash, even though they have a gigantic movie studio someplace else they're not even using. There was another opportunity to get a real estate property in L.A. They own over $400 million worth of real estate in L.A.
Yeah, they're not poor; they're rich.
Much of it is classic real estate.
Yeah.
From the 20s and 30s,
right.
And like this is a classic movie studio from the early days of Hollywood. It's not far from where Walt Disney and his brothers started off in a garage. There's a ton of Hollywood history there. Now they own it. It's completely empty. The parking lot's dead. There's a few people that wander around, and it's covered with spikes and fences and security cameras and da-da-da-da-da.
Okay, because they keep showing a demonstrational video of how it looks. That must be CG, what they're showing us, right?
A lot of that is computer graphics.
Okay.
Or even if it's not 3D computer graphics, they've filtered it so much that everything looks wonderful and rosy.
Yeah, it looks wonderful and rosy.
Some of their buildings are just exist in computer graphics because the building itself is this ancient hulk no one's fixed up. So when they show these long lists, like 10 minutes long, of all these buildings they own, half of them are in terrible shape, but they just look great inside the computer.
I got you.
And I'm a 3D animator. I know exactly how that works, so I can spot it really quickly.
All right. Now you actually worked on some really good movies. Can you tell us the movies that you worked on?
I've worked on some great movies and some shitty movies as a 3D animator. I worked for Disney and all the major studios. The best one I worked on was Holes for Disney.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Sigourney Weaver. Really good movie about, it's a Disney movie that boys love, and there's an interracial murder in it because a black man loves a white woman, and they kill him, and then she goes and she blows away the head of the guy who shot her lover.
Okay.
And this is a Disney movie, and it's all about caring about others. It's really well done. And I also worked on The Guardian for Disney with Ashton Kutcher. And then I've worked on some staggering flops, like Pluto Nash, one of Warner Brothers' biggest flops. Did my best work in that. Eddie Murphy made $18 million, and I think 18 people saw it, one of which was me. Red Planet, that was another huge bomb. with Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
He was. They had he and another actor had a fight on the set, and they had to digitally insert him and the other actor into the same scene so they could appear together. Val Kilmer is a Christian Scientist. He's currently dying from lack of medical care, like John Travolta's sons.
Oh, wow,
no
I
shit.
didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, and then I won an Emmy working on HBO's The Pacific, which is a really good World War II drama. If you like the movie Saving Private Ryan, you'll like Pacific too. It has these dynamic, war sequences.
You have to see that one.
Animated.
Yeah. Now, what's funny, they were showing the new studio that they bought. What would Scientology need a television studio for anyway, when you can just do that with a cell phone?
Yeah, they say things like, we're going to make DVDs with it. Like, come on, gang. Why not make cassette tapes while you're at it?
Yeah.
They're like way behind the technology.
They're kind of behind.
They're kind of,
they live in a bubble world where they're just going through the motions to, you have to do what's called proselytizing, spreading the word. Otherwise, the IRS will say you're not a religion anymore.
Oh, okay, so there's always an ulterior motive.
Yeah, they're only doing it so that they can look like a religion.
I got
and
it.
when you see their young people on the street giving out brochures and stuff that no one wants, they are essentially like those little cutout pictures you see in an architectural rendering of, oh, this is how the building's going to look. And we have little cutout people in it to show you the scale and such. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the same thing these human beings are. And it's just to please the IRS so that the cult can have another big building. Or in the case of the media productions, a great big complex with multiple sound stages, one quite large, a section just for computer graphics, a section just for music for Chick Corea, big parking structures, everything you could need. And they claim, oh, we're going to make it available to the community for nonprofit work. It's like, no, they're not.
So what's new in Scientology? What are they worried about right now? Do you know? Is there any new scandal coming or anything?
I'm not sure what scandals are coming. They've been so scandaled. I mean, the great leader's father wrote a book calling him a scumbag.
Oh, man.
Man, your own dad. That's fucking harsh.
Yeah. So, like, they won't, when I wave that book in their face, they actually turn away and they don't look at it.
Yeah.
It's in theta.
That's in theta, right?
Look at it.
That's in theta, yeah.
Can you explain to the audience what in theta is?
And theta is enturbulated theta.
Obviously.
Turbulation means the creation of turbulence.
Right.
And theta means like soulfulness.
Okay.
So, and theta is stuff that upsets you to your soul.
But it's like a space soul.
Well, no, your thetan is your body's soul that reincarnates endlessly, but the body thetans, those are the dead bodies of space aliens. It's confusing. They use thetan for multiple stuff.
Okay, now can you tell us what the whole track is?
The whole track, oh God, I might have to look that up. So there's your life track, which is your life. So when you edit this video, you can scrub through the little slider. It's called scrubbing. And you can go up and down through my conversation, forward and backward in time, right?
Okay.
No, say right.
Yeah. Right.
And in Scientology, like when Tom Cruise goes on a bad movie, he'll just go back in time. He'll scrub through his life track to go back in time to the point where he was going to make the movie and then just not make it. Okay. So you can scrub through your own life track from beginning to end if you are a powerful enough Scientologist and spent enough money. Now, what about your reincarnations? What about when Jet Travolta was a caveman or killed someone during the Crusades? That's your whole track. All of your reincarnations lined up like a series of YouTube videos, and you don't just scrub through one of them. You can scroll through the entire one.
All the future and all the past, the whole track.
You might have been on another planet. You might have been like Luke Skywalker a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
And then incarnated on other planets and this planet. Damn. So that's the whole track.
Man.
That's something else.
They will talk therapy people, and they'll tell them, you're a reincarnation of Julius Caesar. But you can't tell anyone because it's so incredible.
They'll be jealous.
They'll tell everyone that.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one Julius Caesar. You can't all be alive today and be reincarnated of him.
Yeah.
But they're told not to talk about it. Don't talk about your gains. Just keep it to yourself. And so they believe in reincarnation, even though no one has ever come back and said, I'm reincarnated. No one ever has. And they're still waiting for the great leader, L. Ron Hubbard, to show up again.
Yeah, they built a house for him, didn't they? All his clothes are laid out, right?
They have a house for him, a huge mansion called Bonnie Blue in Riverside, California. And in all their main structures, they have an office for him. So when he comes back, he can just sit right down in his office. They used to put his favorite cigarettes out.
Damn. Which are cools, aren't they?
Cools, yes.
Well, haven't you noticed that insignia that they inscribed out in the desert looks just like this?
That thing I told you about that the space aliens are supposed to see that they gouged into the ground outside their secret base?
Yeah.
That's the cool cigarettes logo, because L. Ron Hubbard liked it so much because he stared at it all day.
Damn.
Smoking's okay.
That's excellent.
So if it was Marlboro, it would just be that red M looking thing.
It would be an M.
Yeah.
Man. You say that's from Miscavige. No, it's Marlboro.
What would you do to Miscavige?
What would I do?
Yeah, if you had access to Miscavige, how would it go down, Angry Gay Pope?
I'd find some way to extort money out of him, because if I punch him, he'd kick the shit out of me with his little chop sockies, and then his bodyguards would finish the job.
Man, that is awesome. AGP, this was a fantastic show, and I just wanted to take time to tell the audience to go to your channel. It's called The Angry Gay Pope, right?
Technically, it's YouTube / The End of Scientology. Because they canceled the Scientologists got my Angry Gay Pope one taken down. I had to make a new one.
Okay.
But all you have to do is go to YouTube and Google Angry Gay Pope and it'll come up. Or go to angrygaypope.com.
Yeah, and it's fantastic.
Click on the donate button.
Exactly. And and you have a Patreon also.
Yeah, I have a Patreon account, and some people donate through that. I haven't promoted it enough. Or trouble is, I was making a good bit of money like in 2008-9. Doing protests, because I was the only one doing it. Now plenty of people are doing it, and plenty of people are online begging money for who knows what.
Right.
And the economy is terrible. Even, legit charities are struggling. So I understand when people can't donate, even though you're a bunch of cheaters getting my entertainment for free as I sit in jail thinking about you.
Yeah, that's right. You got to tell people that you actually go to jail over this. You're serious about this. Matter of fact, you grabbed your handler's ass, didn't you?
Yeah.
Let's hear about it.
Then I spent like 3 or 4 days in jail for sexual battery before the charges were dropped.
I saw the video. You smacked him right in the ass. What happened? What do we see? Or are you saving that for the video?
Yeah, I'm saving it. My reactive mind was clouded by haunted spirits. Intoxicating spirits I drank before I left.
It's hilarious.
So I've got me touching Ken Long's butt. This old man who looks like a cross between a pedophile and Captain Kangaroo. Or maybe they're the same thing. I don't know what Captain Kangaroo was up to. He seemed like a good man to me. And I've got Odo telling the 911 operator that I touched his crotch. He was trying to touch my penis.
Odo shouldn't mind, though.
Something was going on that night, November 7, 2015. Okay. I was deliberately there with none of my usual cameras and signs and things that make it a protest. I didn't, and it was really close to Guy Fawkes Day, where the one night a year where anonymous protesters go after them. And then there was some kind of major event going on that night, and I think David Miscavige was there because I've never seen Odo so terrified, this guard. And he was like just super worried and in my face and get out of here and da-da-da-da. And I said, call me DM, David Miscavige, call me DM and I'll leave. DM, leave.
Yeah, I heard of it. You got him to call you David Miscavige. That's awesome.
DM. Well, that's my real world initials too. So DM right. And I are like brothers. We have the same initials, and we're both popes.
Okay. So that's what saved him from going to the hole.
I get. Well, Odo wouldn't go to the hole or something like that because he'd be put on the rehabilitation project force for mental rehabilitation.
That's right.
But the guards have a lot more leeway about doing things, and they don't get yelled at for things like that.
Right. Now,
but he doesn't. He also speaks as little as possible, which is smart because he'll say something stupid possibly.
Tell us about Lisa, the anti-shirtless lady.
Yes, she was a woman, this gorgeous gal who sat at the front desk of the L. Ron Hubbard Life Exhibit Museum on Hollywood Boulevard that nobody goes into. It's a dead museum. The only people that go there are Chinese tourists who will see anything American that is free.
Yeah.
And what they do is, I was protesting there so much that they tried their trick of, let's file restraining orders against him. And in order to do that, they needed multiple instances of me like harassing a Scientologist, and they didn't have it. But they had multiple instances of me talking to her or standing near her. And so she filed a restraining order against me, and another guy did. And the judge said, these are pretty much nonsense, but I'm going to give the Scientologist one of them. Otherwise, people are going to appeal. And this will just go on forever. And the criminal justice system is broken, so they just want me out of there. And I just want to force Scientology down their throat and make them pay for it. The criminal justice system should have taken care of this problem a long time ago, and they didn't. So she had a restraining order against me for 3 years at one location, which is the shortest time you can have. And then another time I was standing out there one day on Guy Fawkes Day, and she charges me with stalking, and I spent a couple of days in jail on totally false stalking charges. When I finally came before the judge, what had been felony stalking became misdemeanor stalking. And then when I came before the judge, he just said, don't do that again for a year and we'll forget about it.
Yeah. Now, her mother got abducted, didn't she? By her father? Or kidnapped?
They were in Florida, in your neck of the woods near Clearwater. So her mother didn't believe in medical care. She only believed in Scientology medical care. Kind of like that actor Val Kilmer is dying now because he only believes in Christian Science medical care, which is praying.
Right.
So this woman, anti-shirtless lady's mom, wouldn't go to the doctor, and she's very ill. So her father decided to kidnap her and take her to the doctor, take her to a new doctor. Okay. So they duct taped her to a chair, and like he and his neighbor are like carting her out to the car, and the neighbors called the police because, and both the men go to jail for a couple of days till it's all sorted out and that they were Scientology idiots. And then I guess the judge just kind of threw it all out and said, you guys are going to go to family therapy. And they'll go, we'll go to Scientology family therapy. Yeah, whatever. I mean, I don't know what happened after that, but you can Google the article online and get their names.
Now, you caught anti-shirtless Scientology lady recently on video, and she's looking pretty rough. It looks like she's not eating too well.
She looked okay. I saw her in May at the opening of the Scientology Media Center movie studio we talked about.
Okay.
And they had all 3 Scientologists who have had restraining orders against me at the VIP entrance there. So, like, whatever we do, we're going to put our big guns right there because we know he's coming in his goddamn Pope hat. And they see me looking weird with a mask. Sometimes I just look like a normal person and hope they don't recognize me. But if I'm serious, I've got the full Warpath Guy Fawkes mask, giant hat, and I'm like 7 feet tall in that hat, and a big loud rainbow shirt on. And then they know they're in for trouble that day because I mean business. And it's going to be really hard to arrest me for stalking and nonsense when I'm dressed like a clown with day-glow pants and a kooky hat on. Yeah, sure. Arrest me for being a danger to society officer. Har, har.
Yeah, you got a lot of really cool videos. You even had one where you went up to the Celebrity Center. Remember that? And they're playing that weird like sonic weapon noise. Yeah.
Celebrity Center. The Celebrity Center is in Hollywood. If they played a noise like that, they'd be arrested.
Okay, so that's not the Celebrity Center.
This was Gold Base in Riverside, California.
Gold Base. That's right. What is Gold Base?
It's their world headquarters, and it's where the massive movie studio is. It's where the house that L. Ron Hubbard owns, even though he's dead, is.
Okay.
And they put up a half-mile long surround sound system of gigantic speakers that played audio noise, like white noise, like or giant, an intense gold tone sound like this. And it wasn't just the same noise; it changes over time in order to screw with your head even more. And I'm sure I'm sure they tested it on some of their slaves to see which ones they hated the most. And it was designed to make us not like being there, and it was designed to prevent people inside from hearing what we had to say.
Right. Now, Gold Base, that's
at
what...
one point the cops show up and they get out of their cars and they go, "What's that noise?"
Now, Gold Base is where Marty Rathbun escaped from, right?
Yes, that's where the hole is. That's where they keep a lot of that's where they keep a lot of their VIPs that wanted to leave or were otherwise in trouble, and they just dump them in there, and you're in like a double wide trailer sleeping on the floor, and you ate rice and beans for years. There's a time to kill people. Yeah. Now I hear things are slightly better, that they can go to the commissary and have their food, and they sleep on a cot. But the government knows it's going on. Everybody knows it's going on. No one does anything about it. The government's afraid. The government is afraid of Scientology because of what happened at Waco, right, and what happened with the Heaven's Gate, or not the Heaven's Gate cult, the Jim Jones cult in Guyana, where a congressman was killed and plenty of people killed in a suicide thing. And the Scientologists had plenty of weapons, so the government is afraid to do anything. And they're afraid, like, if we go in and say we're here to rescue you, people wouldn't want to be rescued because they don't know that they are in a hellish situation.
Right. What do you think is going to happen to it? How much longer can Scientology last?
Right now, it's getting harder and harder to protest because there's fewer people outside different places, and they've run out of new people, so everyone recognizes me now. Right. It used to be like 6 months. After 6 months, they'd rotate people out of a situation, and I could come back and no one would recognize me. And they do that on purpose so that no one can get too friendly with each other and start talking about the system and what's going on. They deliberately keep everyone from talking. They deliberately move people around. They keep married couples separated just so no one will compare notes. And they're encouraged to shut up about Scientology and only just tell on each other, tell on other people. So eventually you get paranoid and you just stop talking at all. So it's hard to see where it's going now, but things are getting smaller and smaller, but they still have tons and tons of money. So they are having to spend more and more money on like paid lawyers instead of in-house lawyers that work practically for free and are super loyal. So they have to pay for these mercenary lawyers who are just in it for the money and think their client's an idiot, and they don't do a very good job.
So you think it'll last 10 years maybe?
Waste their money even more. So that's great too. But I'm wondering if something just might snap someday and David Miscavige flees the country, or if the first thing that's going to have to happen is that the government's going to have to do something.
Right. Wow. Now, do you think?
I'm told by my lawyer, who's a cult expert, that cults never really die; they just fade down to a tiny little ember.
Okay.
You know? So there's always going to be cults as long as there are insecure people, and that means forever.
Now, when Scientology
the internet is trashing these things. Mormonism is trashed. Scientology is trashed by the internet, and then the Catholics have that sex with kids problem that's their own issue.
Now, when Scientology burns down to an ember, will it still own all those big buildings? You think they'll sell those off and they'll pocket the money and guys will run?
I'm not sure what's going to happen. They're like the opposite of everyone else. Most of us don't own property. Most of us are all broke in this horrible economy. They're quite the opposite. They have lots of property and lots of money. They just don't have believers.
Right. A church without followers. Just leaders.
Yeah. I've seen those Christian Science reading rooms. They've been around since the 50s or whatever. No one ever goes into them, and they just happen to just be there.
Yeah.
There's a cult on Sunset Boulevard called A Canker, which sounds like a canker sore. And it's a nothing place. I've never been in it, but the outside, all the signs are faded. And it's, when a sign gets faded, it turns blue because the blue ink fades last. And there are all these faded aqua signs. And no one goes into A Canker. But it still has this nice little office there. And I'm wondering if that's what will happen to Scientology. I don't know, but it's pretty damn dramatic right now.
Wow.
With all these people leaving, and then now these people are leaving sooner and sooner, and they're talking sooner and sooner, so you get fresh data that's only like 6 months old about what's going on.
Wow. Man, though this has been a fascinating interview, AGP.
Well, thanks so much for having me, gang. I appreciate it.
We'd love to have you back on again for updates. Have you on maybe one...
6 months or something like that. Yeah,
sure. That'd be great.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Now, Jenny, do you ever say anything?
I just mostly let Tom talk.
No, there you go. She usually carries the show. It's just that I guess I just kind of carried this interview. I don't know.
Well, because you said you had all the questions.
I had the questions.
So I said, well, I'll let you ask the questions.
I've been thinking about the questions for several days. And I'll just listen. But no, you're just fascinating. I could sit here and listen to you forever, man. You're really fucking, you're legendary,
thanks so much.
man.
I should do more public speaking.
You do. You need to do a lot more shows. And shows will promote your channel because your channel is fantastic. I could just put it on there and put play all videos and sit back. Jenny will testify. I can just sit back and watch them for hours.
Yeah, we'll spend like hours and hours.
I had one woman say, my son, we were driving somewhere and my son shouted out the window, David Miscavige beats his staff for no reason. They're like in Chillicothe, Ohio or something.
Yeah, your videos have gotten really good.
Thank you. Yeah, as a Hollywood professional, I edit them, have 3D animation, sound editing. You know, when people are walking by and get near the camera, I add a little whoosh noise to stuff.
Oh yeah, when Odo jumped on his bike, you had the damn takeoff sound like Forrest Gump.
Yes.
And then when they showed the television studio, you're playing the theme of Cosmos. When they're running around, you're playing the theme of Clockwork Orange. You have a lot of Clockwork Orange-ish type sounds in there. It's awesome.
Right. The funeral for Queen Mary.
Yeah.
So I sometimes got in trouble with it for stealing things. So now all I do is, like, if I want to use a Beatles song, I just type in Beatles song cover, and I get a cover of someone playing it. It's even better than the Beatles song because it's new and different. Yeah. But yeah, I've put a lot of post-production into them too. It's not like pricks on YouTube will upload anything, you know, it's almost always horrible, but mine are not like that.
We'll put lots of tags in this video so everybody can find you easily.
Oh, great. Well, then when it's up, I will have I'll do a little quick video on my channel, pointing people to your channel video.
Oh, your fans are going to want to hear this show because you haven't done an interview in a long, long time. I'm glad to have gotten the exclusive. This is like an exclusive.
Well, yeah, because you're the only one who asked.
I don't know why, man. I just said, man, AGP. I've only heard one other interview show with you, and it was good. But I think this one's
yeah. Unfortunately, he had the flu at the time.
Yeah, I remember that. He was hacking the whole time.
This was a comprehensive AGP interview. I'm happy with it.
Well, great. We'll do this again in a couple of weeks or months then.
Great. Yeah. If something comes up or you know, we just want to have fun, we will call you. I want you to be a regular, at least a semi-regular.
Sure. That'd be great.
Okay, AGP. Right.
Thanks so much, gang.
Thank you. Thank you for being on.
Bye. And to LRH.
Okay.
Say it. To LRH.
To LRH.
Put your hand in a Nazi salute when you say it.
We did. He did it. He did it.
Go to LRH. Bye-bye.
So that was the interview. Hope you enjoyed it with the Angry Gay Pope. And please check out his YouTube channel. It's The End of Scientology. And he has a website, theangrygaypope.com. And he also has a Patreon. And if you like our show, then you can follow us on YouTube at 13 O'Clock Podcast and find us on iProject Radio, or we have a blog that's called 13 O'Clock Podcast and Twitter, 13 O'Clock Podcast, or like us on Facebook. You guys know the drill. So see you guys next week.